Hey everybody, it's Mark Masters. It's Always Bookin Comedy. I'm here with Zoe Rogers from Boulder, Colorado. It is not Monday night right now. We're pre-taping this. I don't know when this will air. Maybe it'll be a fun holiday. Maybe I'll be on a cruise ship. Who knows? But you'll be seeing this, and we're going to talk about Boulder Comedy Festival, running shows in Boulder, Colorado. Zoe's a real pro at comedy. Let's get to know her. Zoe, I don't know. How do you get started in comedy? Were you in Boulder when you started?
No, I was in LA actually. I'd been living there for, well, I lived in LA for 11 years, but when I started comedy, I was pretty new there. And I had a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I had a friend from high school that I ran into at the grocery store, and we started having lunch and hanging out, and he was like, "You have to take this comedy class. You would love it." And I was like, "Dude, I don't even have time to take a shower. Like, I can't take a comedy class." So it literally took about a year of him bugging me every time we hung out, being like, "Call this guy, call this guy, call this guy." And finally the guy called me and was like, "Daniel says that you should take my class." So I signed up for it. And it just changed my life. It was the only thing that I had done for me in years. Like every class I'd been to had been like tumbling or bubbles or like things for kids. And all of a sudden I was in a room full of people who were like, "Yes, I did level 1 and level 2 of groundlings," and all these impressive things. And I was like, "I am Zoe, and this is the first time that I've been in a class that didn't have bubbles." And it was great. It was really scary because I was like, they ask you all these questions, and everybody else, I felt like I felt very unprepared for this class, but it was terrific. And then I went from that to performing and then producing, and did that for the better part of a decade, and then moved to Colorado.
Amazing. So quick question. Would you recommend people who are trying to get started in comedy take a class? Do you think that's a requirement?
I would recommend it, but I know it's not for everybody. Like some people like to go to, for me, it was sort of like a jump start support group type thing. Like I could go and write with these people and get my joke to where I felt comfortable saying it on stage instead of just going to a million mics. And it just felt like a faster process for me to be able to say like, yes, I have this 5-minute set. But I know some people are like, "No, I don't like to write with other people." For me, I feel like that's a huge thing. I feel like that's how you know if your joke is funny. If it only makes you laugh, like that's the problem.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So you're out in LA and you finish your class. Like, what does comedy look like? You doing open mics? How do you transition into running shows at some point?
Well, I did. I got booked on a couple shows from our grad show, and that was great. But at the time, and it's better now, but at the time, it felt like people would only book like one woman on a show. So if one of my friends was on it, let's say there's 6 of us at the time, if one of our friends was on it, we're happy for them, but it also means we're not getting booked that month.
Right.
So a friend of mine reached out. He got offered a room to run a show in like this total dive bar at 6 o'clock on a Sunday. And he basically gave the room to me because he was never available. So I ran the room, and that way I was able to get up on stage once a week. And then I got another dive bar that was closer to home. So I was running these 2 shows in the back of these pubs. And that was a good way to get people. Like I would say to people when I asked them to do it, like, "Hey, it may just be you and me." Like,
right.
And that's the best case scenario because there could be like a bachelorette party there or a football game. But it was fun. And that way everybody got to get up and feel like they could polish their stuff. And then gradually people asked me to produce things at better venues that didn't smell like urine. And yeah, so it sort of went from there. I started something called Karmic Comedy, where we would do a fundraising show for a different organization every month.
Okay.
And so I got to do that at Westside Comedy Theater, which is a really nice venue.
Oh, yeah. I've been there.
Yeah, that's
George Wallace performed there.
Yeah, it's huge. They have like people drop in at the end of your show and do like an hour. So that was really fun. And that's how I got into the producing thing.
Nice. Awesome.
It was about a necessity.
Cool. And then, so I assume you didn't move for comedy to come to Boulder.
I mean, not sort of. We knew we had to leave LA. It was just, we had 3 kids at this point, and it wasn't. My husband was like, "What's the plan?" Because he was like, "We can't stay here." And I loved it there, and I loved the comedy community there. But so when we moved, we wanted to find good schools. We wanted to find a lot of things, but one of the things was like comedy for me. Like nobody wants mom to lose her mind. And so we were looking at Oregon and Colorado. And
Okay.
ultimately, we came and did a trip here, and the shows were terrific.
Yeah.
And they had such a good system for getting people booked, and they would give you great stage time. And I just was sitting there being like, I don't think this would be a huge transition coming from LA, because you at the time everybody thought like New York and LA, that's it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and then when I visited here, I was like, yeah, no, I could totally do comedy here. It's a really terrific scene.
In retrospect, do you think it's been even better being
Um,
in Boulder than LA?
I think there have been a lot more opportunities here than there were, because it was so saturated there. You
Yeah.
know, like
That's every time I go to LA 1 or 2 times a year, and honestly, I don't enjoy it very much. It's like the shows are super far apart.
yeah,
They're not very good, even when you have huge names on the shows. Like
yeah.
there's nobody in the audience.
It's hard to like because it's so saturated. I remember producing shows that had people. It was the type of thing where when I asked them, I was like, oh, like, will they say? And then they said yes, and I was like, oh my gosh. So then to have somebody like that on stage in your show and have an audience of like 10 people that are all on Twitter, and you want to be like, do you even understand who's on stage right now? So I haven't run into that here the way that I did there. Like I just felt like people were unimpressed. They were like, I have 8 million options. Why should I keep paying attention to you?
Yeah. What any big booking wins there or in Colorado? People you've been excited to get on the show?
Oh yeah. I've had fun people in LA. I got to work with Baron Vaughn. He was great. Kira Sultanovich, Felicia Michaels, Dave Williamson. Who else?
Barbecue guy, right?
Yes, yeah. He took me on the road with him when I was like a couple years into comedy, and that was like one of the most gracious things.
Nice.
Like, hey, come with me. Like, let
Yeah,
me.
he opens for Burt Kreischer now.
Yeah, it's and so that was very cool. But yeah, it was you have these moments like Brian Kiley who and Lori Kilmartin who like write for Conan, and you're like,
Yeah.
it's on my show. How did this happen?
Right.
So that kind of thing is very cool.
That's cool. Have you had similar experiences in Boulder, Colorado, or has that dropped off a little bit?
No, I mean I had like Dave came and did Boulder Comedy Festival, so that was wild. I got to have Al Jackson do Boulder Comedy Festival.
Cool.
Felicia Michaels came and did it, and I was like, so that's stuff like that's been really cool. And then to have people come from LA and like be like, I don't even know what this is all about, and then they come out and they're like, this is great, and you're like, I know.
Okay, so you get into Boulder and you want to like, you got family stuff, but you also want to like spin up your comedy stuff. How do you like get known? How did you get booked on your first show? Maybe like what was that transition like? Did you start a show immediately?
Well, when I first came out to visit, I got booked on shows. And so I met some local producers that way. And so when I was back in town, I was like, hey, I live here now. But yeah, I had to go to Mike's to meet people because, I'm sure a lot of people were like, who are you? So I would go to Mike's and then people would come up and be like, hey, would you do my show? Nice. And then I was teaching and just doing other people's shows. And I had reached out to Dairy Arts about doing their comedy show because somebody said, oh, there's an art center in Boulder. And I met the creative director there through a friend. And he was like, yeah, why don't you come in and we'll talk about like your role here. And I was a little bit like, wait, like during the day? Like you want me to? And he had looked me up and found out that I had done Karmic Comedy and that I'd run a show called Token Straight White Dude that I ran out of somebody's backyard in Santa Monica. And they were like, would you be interested in like hosting and curating the show? And I was like, yes, like, please. And it just felt like after years of running shows in dive bars and like shouting over drunk people and getting there and having them be like, oh, we forgot you were doing your show tonight. Like that thing, to go from that to being like, I'm doing a show in an art center. Like that was really cool.
That's awesome. Do you remember any of those early shows you got booked on?
Yeah.
Anything that's
stuff that's still running. Uncorked at Infinite
Okay.
Monkey
Who
Theorem.
was running it back then?
Megan was running it.
Okay.
And it was like this
Ponzo, for
trifecta.
those
Yeah,
watching.
it was all these redheads, like, which was very. And then I did a show with Katie Bowman, another redhead. And I did Steve Vanderplug's show.
Yeah.
I went on that the Facebook page. Hey, I'm coming to Denver, and I was like, hey, this is me. This is my clip. These are my dates. I'd love to do whatever you think I'm right for. And I got to do all these fun shows, so that was nice.
Did you tell people you moved here, or were you like, I'm just visiting for a week? Did you
Well,
pull
I
that
said
sneaky
I'm
move?
visiting and I'm thinking about moving.
Okay. And
Um,
was that true, or had you like moved into a house?
no, this is before we found a place. And it
Okay.
was funny because a lot of people were like, you should totally move. You should do it. And I was like,
Huh.
really? And they were like, yes. So that was really nice.
That's cool. Awesome. So then you start the Dairy Art Show. How long ago was that?
Oh man, that was a while ago. I think that was 2019, maybe 2018.
Okay. What did you do during the pandemic? Full pause?
We were on full pause. We did some Zoom shows. What I did Zoom shows with them, not consistently, not like every month. And I got to do a really fun before the pandemic, like 2 months before the whole world shut down. I got one of the cooler bookings I've ever gotten, which was the Cancer Support LA does a gala every year, the Gilda Gala, for Gilda Radner, and they wanted to do stand-up, and somebody mentioned me to them because they were like, we want a woman to MC and like put together the lineup. So they called me, and I just moved here like not too recently, and they were like, yeah, we want you to host it and like put it together. And I was like, is this a joke? Like, I was like, who is this? So I got to fly back and do that. And so during the shutdown, they did a couple Zoom shows, and I got to do a Zoom show with Paula Poundstone and Mindy Sterling, and I was like, it was. So like I got to be on Zoom with them, but my kids were like in the hall, like fighting, and I'm just getting closer and closer to the Zoom, being like, "You guys, you can't fight. I'm on Zoom with Paula Poundstone and Mindy Sterling."
That's amazing. That's incredible. So I've done your Dairy Art Show, or at least one of them, the one that was in the movie theater.
Yeah.
Maybe like what is that, like a 75-seater, 100-seater?
Yeah.
Something like that. And do you have other rooms in that complex, or is that where the show always is?
Well, that's usually where we are. Once or twice we've been in the Black Box Theater. And then for the festival, they put us in the GAM, the bigger one. That's like 200 seats.
Which room is your favorite of the three, and why?
Oh, I don't know. Probably the GAM, although it's really intimidating. Like, it's
how many seats is it?
It's like 200.
Wow.
So that's why it's intimidating. And I don't know that I have a favorite. Like the Black Box one reminded me, I grew up in New York, so it reminded me of like off-Broadway shows in New York.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is so cool. So I don't really have a favorite. I'm just happy to be in any of the rooms.
Nice. Do you bring any equipment to these shows, or they provide everything?
No, they have the whole setup there, which is nice. Because that was the other thing. I was running shows in like dodgy places, but also was lugging my enormous speaker and all my cords. And so that's nice to just show up. And
right. Do you still have that enormous speaker?
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Do you like it?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's reliable. I've seen people with little ones, but it's like if you get a bigger space, or sometimes you produce a show in a weirdly shaped space and you need to like have everybody in the back hear you, or they will let you know that they can't hear you.
Right.
So I bring this huge speaker with me.
Nice. So you've sold a lot of tickets over the years. Do you have any advice for showrunners on getting butts in seats?
Oh, man. I don't know if one of the great things about partnering with a good venue is that they'll spread the word. Yeah. Like that's always nice. Like when you work with a venue and they're like, yeah, we'll send it out on our email blast, or I'll put it on my website. That's so nice, because then their regulars just show up and you're not trying to draw people. Like, because I've done the thing where you walk down the street and you're handing out flyers being like, hey, do you like comedy? Hey, do you like comedy? And that's no fun. So I definitely prefer that, because there have been some venues that I've almost worked with or not worked with where they've been like, oh no, the comics bring in the people. And I was like, no, the comics are doing like 10 shows a week. Like you need to put the word out to your regulars and let them know that comedy's happening here.
Yeah. Any horror stories over the years? Anything that's funny now running a
Um,
show?
yeah, the Irish pub where I ran my Sunday show, um, people were always, I felt like I was seeing people on their worst day. Like I was seeing people like the day before they went to an AA meeting there. Like that was always what it felt like. And this one guy, he was just, this is like 6 o'clock on a Sunday, you know? This guy was just not in a good place. And he stumbled on stage while a comic was on stage and started patting the wall behind him and being like, "Where's the bathroom? Where's the bathroom?" And we were all like, "So that's not the bathroom." Like we had to like, and the comic was so graceful because like the guy finally leaves and he's like, keep going on your left. Yeah, you got it. You got it. Like, but it was just one of those moments like, what am I doing with my life right now?
Yeah, you're lucky you didn't just go right there.
Oh yeah. I was like, somebody in the audience was like, is this performance art? And I was like, no.
That's so funny.
This is so great.
All right, let's talk about the festival. So you run Boulder Comedy Festival. Excuse me. You run Boulder Comedy Festival. Well known, well loved. How long have you run it? How did it start?
This is our 4th year. And it was supposed to start in 2020, but like everything else, we were on pause. And I had wanted to do a festival for a really long time because when I started doing comedy, I just was like very aware of what I wanted to see more of. And the show that I ran was in like the 2 shows were in these like dive bars, but the people were fantastic. Like it was like really eclectic lineups and different voices. And I remember being like, wouldn't it be cool? Because one of the comics said like, wouldn't it be nice to see a lineup like this at, and was naming all these different clubs that tended to not have that kind of lineup. And I remember thinking like, wouldn't it be cool to see this in a festival? Like if you could do this for days. So the idea was in my head before we moved. And then I had been working with the dairy for a while and they seemed really supportive. And a couple of friends of mine that I write with, who are also like performing all over the place, I had said like, if I did a festival, would you come? Like, is that something you do? And they were like, yeah, like, can I stay on your couch? Sure. So I pitched that to the dairy and said like, hey, I'd like to do something called Boulder Comedy Festival. And these are the people I've already got signed on to do it. What do you think? And they were like, yeah, we'll give you the weekend. And I was like startled because I was like, you will? Really?
How far out was it? Was it like 6 months in the future?
Yeah. I think it was like, it was supposed to be in, I want to say June. And I think I pitched it to them in like January.
Okay. Nice.
And they were like, yeah, we've got these dates. Originally, I just was like, could we do like 2 shows? And they were like, no, we could do, it's enough time out and you've got these names, and they would draw people. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of how it started. And then like last year we wound up with like 8 shows or something crazy. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It just takes over your life, as I'm sure you know. Yeah.
Okay. So, and in that first year it gets canceled. Did you take submissions that first year?
Yes, I did.
So what happened to the people who had applied?
I gave them their money back.
Everybody. Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, the first year we didn't have a ton of people that submitted. Okay. And I had booked mainly friends that I knew and people that I'd worked with in LA who I'd seen consistently. And I reached out to Dave Williamson and all these other people who were going to do it. And then they were like, oh, COVID. And so, yeah, the people that submitted, I refunded their money, and everybody else, I was like, hey, I'll let you know if they give, if the world ever, cause I was like, nobody knows.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a crazy time. And then, so did you come back summer 2021?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we did. I reached out to the same people. Most of them were available. Some of them had like moved to Europe and things, cause COVID, people scattered all over.
Yeah, sure.
But for the most part, yeah.
Did you have any trouble? Was the venue excited to redo it? Like, how was that?
They were like, at the time, since it was 2021, it was like figuring out how can we do this. So it's supposed to be on the back of the stage is their loading dock. So for a while we'd been doing shows there on their loading dock that were open air shows, which is like beautiful in Colorado, but also like, let's hope we don't get rained on or snowed on. So the views were beautiful from there. And that was the plan, that we would do all the shows on the loading dock. And then I think it was rainy like the first year. So they moved us inside. So it was just navigating like different venues. I think that first year I just had 2 venues. No, I had 3 venues. And most of them the dairy was supposed to be open air, but then it rained. The other one was an outdoor like beer garden type thing. And then the other one was the opposite of outdoor, where it was Louisville Underground, where you're literally like in a basement. So I just remember being like, listen, guys, you like, I was like, they were really good about it. They got like this whole recirculated air thing. Cause I was like, I'm running a festival in 2021 and one of my venues is in a basement.
Yeah.
So people were good. People were being creative.
I assume you've been to a bunch of comedy festivals. What do you think is unique about yours, and what maybe do you borrow from other festivals that you like about a comedy festival?
I've been to a bunch. I'd like to do more. But the things that I like,
Vail Comedy Festival submissions closed tomorrow.
I know, I hear good things about Vail. I want to do that. It's just this year, it's on the same day as my son's graduation from high school. But I would love to be there next year. Okay. I will be applying. So
they open November 1st.
Aha. All right.
Write that down. And a little secret, every once in a while, every year we've done this, on Halloween, we open up for surprise a day early, and it's the cheapest price you can get.
I'll do that while I'm eating my kids' candy and hiding in the laundry room.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the things that I've liked, what I like about ours is it's very warm. I'm very friendly, and it's, we highlight women and diversity. So I like that, because as a general rule, and I don't know about now, but like a couple of years ago when I was doing festivals, it felt very much like I would meet all the women on the festival, which was a total bonus, but it was also because there was only like 3 of us. So there was always that, or like a lack of diversity. And I would run into things where people would be like, well, you shouldn't do that festival because they only have 3 women, or you shouldn't do that festival because it doesn't have enough diversity. And I was like, I agree with you, but I don't see how having one less woman on the stage is going to help that. Like, I don't think people should have to give up opportunities. Like, what am I going to be like? Oh, I'll show you. I'll miss the opportunity to perform there because it just felt sort of uncomfortable. Right. But so I like that our festival is very diverse. You get a lot of different voices and perspectives. And what I'm trying to incorporate from other festivals, but again, since we started in 2021, like you couldn't have like after parties and stuff. I was like, does anybody want to hike? Anyone want to go to Chautauqua? So this year I'm going to try to do like a welcome party and I always try to plan events during the day, but people who are traveling here have their own sort of agenda where they're like, oh, well, I'm going, they go on various trips during the day and they come back sort of sunburned to do their set. So, I'd like to have more group events.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's kind of tricky, but I'll speak from as a festival organizer and a festival attendee. Sometimes like the group events are really appreciated when you're traveling, and there's like something unique to that area. But even then, sometimes you have something you want to do. You're catching up with an old high school buddy. You're, who knows what it is. And so there's this weird like pressure to participate in those things. And I feel bad if I don't participate. And then as an organizer, it's a similar thing. It's like, like I set up yoga one year and everybody was excited to do the yoga. And then we actually did it and we paid an instructor and like 4 people showed up.
Yeah.
It was like the hit rate on people actually participating tends to be, I think, lower than people expect.
Yeah, that was, I felt like I would say like, hey, we can meet at 11 at this trail, and nobody was interested because it was like they were here staying with friends or they wanted to go see the sights. And I was like, okay. Also, as an organizer, it's like that's when I'm sleeping and showering and consuming lots of caffeine. Yeah. So
yeah, it's hard to add extra stuff to the agenda. So what have you learned running? So now you've run it 3-4 years. Like what are you doing differently and better?
Oh man, I feel like I make a list at the end of every festival of what I'm going to do differently, and then by the time it rolls around the next year,
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I make a list every year with the volunteers, and I haven't looked at it in a while, and I need to we're also closing submissions for volunteers, and we've been looping in some legacy volunteers who are coming back, which I'm really excited about. Makes the festival better, and I need to send that around and get everybody involved in trying to improve some things.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what things that I've learned, closing submissions earlier.
Mm,
That's what I'm learning, and that's what we're doing this year.
okay, nice.
Um,
And why is that? So comics have more time to plan travel, or it's less stressful
well,
for
yeah, I mean,
you?
part of it is we do like the out of town people first. We reach out to them first because we try to arrange it because some of them can only be in town for 2 days.
Okay.
And then we reach out to like local people. But I guess it's because like I have a couple people, I have like 4 or 5 people who look at tapes with me and will say, like, okay, so this is our lineup. This is great. We're good. And then you'll get 10 people who apply, and a couple of them.
Oh, so you're making those decisions while submissions are still open.
Like you'll be thinking like, because I send it to everyone and we all have a little consensus of like, yes, yes, yes. But then somebody, all these other people will come in. And so that happened last year. And that's why we wound up with 8 shows. Because I was like, they're incredibly funny people that are flying. I'm not going to say no. I'm just going to make another show. So I was running around like a crazy person, but it was fun.
Nice. Any tips? So you must watch a lot of tape. Any tips for people submitting to festivals?
Yes. Like I know the internet, for me anyway, the internet is full of people doing crowd work. I don't want to see a clip of crowd work. Are you bringing this drunk lady with you? Like, what's happening? Like, I want to know what you're going to do on stage. If I bring you here, what are you going to do? Like, that's what I want to know. So if you send me just you doing crowd work with a drunk woman in Dallas, I'm just like, you could be incredibly funny, but I can't tell. So, and then also make your tape not private. I've had a bunch of people send me their links and it's private, and I email them and they don't get back to me. And I'm like, so I don't know what's happening. I had one person send a tape. I didn't know what was happening. At first I thought it was audio because I could just hear the sound. And then at the end, all of a sudden you have visual, and it like comes out of someone's bag or maybe out from under the table to catch the comic leaving the stage. And I was like, is this consensual? Like, what happened? So yeah, I wouldn't send in crowd work, and I
double check your tape. We had something happen this year. It just happened yesterday. We got feedback from one of our review committee people that one of the tapes was like, they sent me the link and they were like, this was somebody's submission tape. And it was 3 hours of a purple square on screen with music. It was clearly like a cut and paste error or something. And over the years, I've gotten more and more vocal in the submission process. When you go to apply, it's like, double check your link. Like there is, and in the FAQs, it just explains like, we don't have time to reach out to everybody individually. If you make a mistake, I don't say this, but you're basically flushing your submission money down the toilet.
Yeah, no one can watch it then.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing. And then I like Laughing Skull did a thing. I don't know if they still do it, where they would say like, you can send us whatever you want, but we're just going to watch the first 5 minutes.
That's what we do.
That's sort of what I've employed too. Because it's like, you can't ask somebody, you can't be like, oh, well, at 15 minutes, there's a big laugh. And it's like,
right.
Got 15 minutes.
Yeah, we got one recently where in the comments it said, my set starts at 1 minute 45 seconds. And I was just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta edit that. Cut out the first 1 minute 45 seconds. What's going to happen is the reviewer is going to watch that first roughly 2 minutes and then another 3 minutes, and that's it. And they're going to be angry after the first 2 minutes.
Yes. Yeah. That would be my thing, is like, make sure it's like, and also look at maybe a rundown of what the festival is. Like, ours highlights women and diversity. So maybe don't send in a tape of you objectifying women and using a ton of racial stereotypes. Like, I've gotten a bunch of those where I'm like, why are you sending me this? Like, did you just kind of mail every festival? Like,
right.
Yeah. So that's happened where I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think that this is going to be a good fit.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got to wrap this up. This is fascinating. You're over a decade into comedy. If you could go back to the beginning, anything you'd change, and what are you looking forward to in the next decade?
Anything I'd change. I mean, take more chances. I did a lot of that, but I think I would have done more.
Okay. You have an example?
I would have done more like applying to festivals and traveling. I got a chance to go do the Edinburgh Fringe, and
Ooh,
that was something I almost didn't do just because I was like, this doesn't make sense. I have two little kids. I'm, going to be on the other side of the world. And it wound up being like one of the best trips. It was so nice. Like you're just inundated with everything. And my friend who does the Fringe every year says you get like a year's worth of experience just in being there for a month.
wow.
So I would have done more of that. Just apply to everything, go everywhere, meet lots of, I guess like best advice is just like really enjoy not just the getting on stage part, but like meeting people, connecting with them.
Mm,
Like that's been really fun.
nice. And what are you looking forward to in the next decade? Any big goals? Anything for 20? We're still early in 2024,
Yeah.
February for anybody who's watching this in the future.
Yeah, just continuing to like create and try new things and, yeah, bite off more than I can chew and figure it out, that sort of thing.
You run a festival. Sounds like you're pretty good at that. You have any specific goals for Boulder Comedy Festival to like grow attendance or have more
That would be
comics or
great.
less comics or
Yeah, no, more attendance is always great. I mean, we were sold out, but it's always nice to have that, knock on wood, be like to have people want to keep coming, to
right.
feel like every year they love it. Like I ran into a guy in a supermarket wearing a Boulder Comedy Festival t-shirt, and I was like, oh, I like your shirt. And he was like, yeah, it's great. You should check it out. It's a really good show. And I was like, I'll do that. Like I was just like, no, it's like, it's good to know that people like what you're doing. So yeah, as long as that keeps happening, and like
You
some,
do have great t-shirts. I want to say
I,
that.
they're
If you're
so
running a festival or a show or anything, get the
fast,
high
they're very
quality,
soft.
nice, soft t-shirts.
Yeah, that's what happens where I would go to festivals and they'd have the high neck that's really crunchy and no
Oh,
one's gonna wear it.
the
Like I tried to
worst.
give it to my kids and they were like, no.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, just trying more things, collaborating with more people, getting to meet new people. I'd like to travel and do comedy more, I think. Like I'd like to be traveling around the US or wherever and just doing comedy all over the place.
Amazing. All right, big things to come. How can people find you if they want to check out your stuff?
You can go to Zoe Rogers Comedy, or you could check out Boulder Comedy Festival, both online.
Okay.
And teaching information is on Zoe Rogers Comedy and also High Road Comedy.
Awesome. Amazing. Thanks for your time, Zoe. Have a
Thank
great day. Thanks
you.
everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next Monday with Always Bookin